Welcome to Penalty Box Radio, presented by Goldstone Financial Group. I'm your host, Sean Smith. With me, as always, is Ann Kimmel, also of Penalty Box Radio. We're very excited tonight because we are going to be joined here in this first segment. We're going to be getting started a little bit differently because we're going to be joined here in this first segment by former Nashville Predators defenseman and current pro development coach for the franchise, Mark Borowiecki. Is Mark with us yet?
Mark Borowiecki, one of the toughest and kindest people in the NHL.
It's definitely there's like the best of both worlds there, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I believe we are now joined by Mark Borowiecki. Mark, how are you doing?
I just got the tail of that introduction. You guys are being way too kind to me, but I appreciate it.
Oh, no, we're not being too kind. We're not being kind enough, sir. Really appreciate you joining us. I know that you've got an early bedtime. You've got to get there soon. So I appreciate you.
You know what? I said that to Ann in passing at the game, and she took that pretty literally. So I got to watch what I say.
Hey, at my age, let me tell you, a 7:15 bedtime, sign me up.
No,
I am 100% here for that.
Yeah, when you got young kids at home and you got a lot of late nights watching hockey games, the nights that I don't have late games, I definitely take advantage of. So.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I totally understand. We wanted to talk to you. I wanted to have you on tonight because in July of 2023, you were named the pro development coach for the team. It's a short job title that likely encompasses a lot. Can you share with us more about what your role entails and how you divide your time between Nashville and Milwaukee and Ottawa and all the different places you've got to be?
Yeah, certainly. Probably a little more under that job title than as explicitly as you kind of alluded to. So, based in Ottawa, full time with my family, and try my best to kind of go once a month to Milwaukee and Nashville. I'm typically on the road, kind of heavy months. I had a heavier month in November. It was about 18 nights. Typically shoot for about 14, so it was a nice little balance, I think. 2 weeks at home with the family, kind of, when I'm at home, I'm watching games, I'm communicating with players, and then, communicating with kind of colleagues at the organization as needed. And when I'm on the road, it's kind of embedded with those two teams. Down in the coach's office, up top watching games, do my best to bump into players, spend a bit of time with them, obviously at the rink and on ice, but I think an equally big part of that is spending a bit of time with them away from the rink, kind of removed from that hockey setting, maybe where guys are a little more comfortable. So it is a nice mix, and I was fortunate also this year to kind of get a glimpse of some of our guys who are likely turning pro in the near future when the World Junior Championship, the U20s, were in Ottawa. So nice to take some availability and be at home and kind of catch a glimpse of the Tanner Molendykes and Andrew Gibsons and also our Swedes. So that's typically the way a month is laid out for me.
I love that they went ahead and scheduled that right in your backyard for your convenience, Mark, because your schedule deserves a little bit of mercy. I wanted to kind of lean into talking about, spending some time with these younger players. And I'm curious, how different is the pro hockey world, both on, but especially off of the ice now, compared to when you entered the league back in 2012? What are the biggest differences for players coming up now?
Resources available, I would say, is a big one. Just obviously something that jumps to my mind right away, and just based on what I'm doing now, what my job is, and kind of where this conversation with you guys is going, that immediately pops in my head. It's try to give resources to these young players, whether it's on ice, off ice, nutrition, strength and conditioning. We have a full-time clinical psychologist, development coaches, things that were kind of in their infancy or didn't exist at all when I kind of broke into pro hockey. And I'm sure going back the generation before me probably didn't exist in any capacity, really. So, a lot of resources. I think it's a bit of a balance because, these young players coming up, they kind of have their own resources now too, their own personal support, system, crew, staff, whatever you want to call it, they're a little more groomed. Hockey is taken, much more seriously from a younger age than it was when I was playing. So it's kind of about finding that balance with all these resources that we're throwing at them too.
So would you say that's probably the biggest challenge that they're facing now coming into the league, or coming at least into professional hockey, is that they're dealing with so many other people that are already involved and have been helping them? Or is there something else that you think is a bigger challenge for them coming in?
I mean, that's certainly, a factor. I wouldn't say probably it's the biggest one, but I think it's something that you have to be cognizant of on our side as that kind of parent NHL club. There's a lot of voices in these players' ears, and we got to make sure that we're building a positive relationship with them, and that way they know that we have their best interest in mind too. If they succeed, we succeed, right? I think in terms of maybe one of the bigger issues, for me, watching a lot of young players is these guys are all super successful. Coming up through youth hockey, through junior hockey, college hockey, whatever it may be, and suddenly you hit pro hockey, and there's the inevitable speed bumps and hurdles and ebbs and flows. This sport, this job can be a grind. There's going to be downs in an 82 or 76, I think, is in the American League game season. It's just it really is inevitable, and I think for a lot of these young players, they've never experienced that before. And some guys handle it different than others, and some, I don't know if I'd want to term it as better than others, but just handle it in different ways, and that can be a real challenge when you do kind of hit that first sort of speed bump.
I guess that's something I never really considered, is that for a lot of players entering in at the pro level, that is the first time they've faced serious adversity on the ice. I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, you think about it, they're all stars pretty much at every level, all the way up, right? All of us in the NHL, fans, watching us live or watching us on TV, the guys like me, the knuckle draggers playing in your 5-6 hole for your defense and your third pair, your fourth line. We were all goal scorers. We were all star players and highly skilled at our own levels, our own respective age groups coming up. And eventually you kind of realize that, hey, there's guys out there who are better than me, and I've got to slot in somewhere else. And that can be a challenge.
It's so interesting too, because the goal, when you're young, I would assume is I want to make the NHL, and you achieve that goal, but that is just the start of what comes next. It's not a finish line. And that's probably got to be, a different perspective shift for these players as they come into the NHL and they achieve a goal.
Absolutely. Longevity is probably the toughest part of the equation, right? How do you find that? I think a lot of times, after the fact or after a season or during the season, whatever, we look at second-year players, and there's this idea of that sophomore slump, and this kind of abstract idea of that sophomore slump, and we can't really put our finger on why it happens. And I kind of chew on that a little bit, and I think part of it is that reality kind of sets in. The novelty wears off of that first year where every rink is new, and you're playing against guys who you watched growing up, and everything's this new, exciting experience. And then year two comes, and it's like old hat a little bit, right? And reality sets in that, hey, this is a grind. Like, January's a grind, February's a grind. Going to whatever city on whatever date, now it's just another game, and that's tough to manage too. So again, it's about having those resources around these players to help them during those inevitable kind of dips and ebbs, and seeing if we can support them in the best way possible.
Mark, I'm curious. You mentioned, going back into your own hockey history, saying that everybody was an all-star at some point or for most of their young career before making it to the NHL. Have you always been a defender, even all the way back through youth hockey, or did you start as a forward?
I actually, it's a good question. I actually switched to being a defender when I was 14. So.
Wow.
At that time, we called it Bantam, where I was playing up in Canada. I think they've now switched to kind of that like U14, U15 sort of setup. But so it was a Bantam year. I was kind of an undersized guy, but for whatever reason, can't quite put my finger on it, but I switched to D and just kind of stuck with it, and luckily it worked out.
How has the role of a defenseman, especially at the NHL level, how has that changed or evolved for these young players? I'm thinking of the Tanner Mollendykes, the Andrew Gibsons, the Ryan Ufkos. How is that position changing in this sport?
Yeah, and that's a really interesting question. Like, I could probably sit here and talk to you about it for a long time and get really into the weeds, but so I think if you go a ways back, it was these big meaty defensemen, right? Everyone wanted physical, big bodies, size, length, and then when I was in the league, I'd say maybe around that sort of 2012, 2013, 2014, that was sort of the advent of analytics and advanced stats, and we started to look a little more towards puck movers.
Gotcha.
We talked about puck possession. A premium was put on kind of smaller, quick defensemen, and I think now in the league you're maybe starting to see the pendulum shift again a little bit. Not back to the extreme of all sort of size, strength, and punishing team men, but maybe a bit more of a balance. Maybe we want big defenders who complement smaller defenders. We call them play enders, guys who can stop plays on their own end, play killers. Again, just sort of help get the puck in the hands of these fast transition D-men. So I think we kind of like looking at D-core composition kind of on a greater level a little more, and then also realizing that each player has their own respective unique skill sets, and how do we help maximize those?
That's very interesting. It kind of lines up with a lot of what we've been seeing, looking at, and we specifically kind of talk and really enjoy the pairing of Luke Schenn and Spencer Stastny. I think that kind of a real perfect explanation or example of what you were just talking about there, the way you're pairing them. Unfortunately, our time is running short. I want to try to get in one more question before we go to break. But I'm very curious. You've had it. We talked about this last week. You've had a chance to see some of the young prospects at development camp and rookie camp. What are your thoughts on the defensemen that are currently in the pipeline for Nashville?
I actually think it's very much a position of depth for us. I think our scouts have done a great job. At the pro level, we're starting to see, the Adam Wilsbys, Spencer Stastny, the Mark Del Geizos, these guys sort of kind of come up to the system and make it be known that they're NHL defenders. Then I think, obviously Tanner Mollendykes, a name that pops into mind for everyone right away. He's a special skater, a first round pick, was a go-to guy for Team Canada at the U20s. Now again, going back to our sort of previous talking point, we've kind of complemented him with a guy like Andrew Gibson, kind of that bigger, stronger defensive profile. I think you're starting to see a nice mix, a lot of promising guys. And, again, we still got guys like Ryan Ufko down in the minors. I'm sure I'm missing some others, but, I think when you see these guys transitioning to the pro level, you realize, how many options we're going to have going forward. And then, not to kind of backtrack too much, but I was pretty fortunate to see a guy like Viggo Gustafsson, a recent draft pick playing for Sweden. I think he might have been, I may be wrong on this, but maybe the second youngest player in that on that Swedish team or tournament or something like that. I'd have to do a little digging on that, but he's quite young. I think he was the second youngest player in his draft year, actually. So he's quite young still, and seeing him playing against older 19-year-olds, established guys, it's great to get eyes on him and see how much promise he has. So, again, I think the organization's done a great job, position of depth for us. I'm excited to see these young players going forward.
Well, Mark, I just want to say that I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. You said that if we started talking about the role of defender and how it's changed, we could really get into the weeds. Let us know when you'd like to do that.
Oh, that would be amazing. that would be
phenomenal. It's exactly the type of thing we're really interested in as the father of a young defender. So, love to do that. But Mark Borowiecki, pro development coach for the Predators, just thank you so much for being on with us. Look forward to talking to you again sometime soon. Good luck with the rest of the season and that travel schedule. And I think we're going to get off here so you can get to your early bedtime.
Get some rest, Mark.
I an early workout at the rink tomorrow, and some time watching video. That's my life now. I swear there was a point in my career when I was playing where I told myself I'd never work in hockey, but
Look at
somehow
you
here I
now.
am.
Look
So
at you now.
enjoying it and feeling fulfilled, and definitely appreciate your guys' time and kind words. And I look forward to catching up again soon.
All right.
Thanks
We
so
appreciate
much.
you too, Mark. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
And we're going to go to break. Oh, man. That's a funky jam. I'd really love it if anybody could holler in, comment somewhere, and tell me what that song is, because I know what it is, and I don't know if anybody else does. Well, welcome back to Penalty Box Radio. If you're looking for your next night out, Stars and Strikes in Smyrna has something for everyone. Whether you're into bowling, laser tag, axe throwing, or their newly expanded arcade, the fun never stops. Plus, their full menu and bar make it the perfect spot for group events and birthday parties. Oh, and it's also a great place to catch the Predators game while you're there. Check them out at starsandstrikes.com. Welcome back, and we just got done talking to Mark Borowiecki. A very incredible interview, in my opinion. Just really enjoy.
During the break, we were both saying, we could sit and chat with him. Go in the weeds, Mark. We want to dig into just different perspectives on roles and defensemen, and just he's such an interesting person. His career, very interesting. And I love his insights and his thoughts, especially working with young players. I think it's really a interesting conversation to have. Appreciate his time.
That was really something. Definitely highlight real material for us here at Penalty Box Radio to have Mark on. So we started the show with Mark, which we feel very fortunate to do. Everyone's probably like, well, now that that's over, we'll go do something else. But we've got cool stuff to talk about.
Oh, we've got a record player in studio.
There's some things that are about to go down. We'll just say that. So we're going to go ahead and just jump into our puck drop topic, which is what we normally start the show with, but we started with something much better. So we're going to get into our puck drop topic. We're just over halfway through the season, and it's been a challenge for this team to get out of the gate. What is one thing, Anne, you would like to change for the rest of the season?
There's probably a plethora of things that people are hollering at their radio right now.
Sure.
But just to pick one, I did some deep diving into numbers based on the power play. And Nashville currently is 20th in the league on power play. one of the biggest expectations going into the season was improving the power play because, of course, we got Steven Stamkos, who played on the #1 power play last season in Tampa Bay. Of course, you added Jonathan Marchessault as well, but that hasn't panned out so far this season. The Predators, again, 20th on the power play. So I went back and I mathed a bit.
Okay.
And looked at in the games that Nashville has lost this season by 1 goal.
Okay.
The Nashville Predators went 4 for 29 on the power play. So they had a 13.8% power play success rate in those games. Overall, they're at 19.67. But in those 1 goal losses,
right,
4 for 29. So then I go back and I look at, okay, in those 14 wins, which I feel like that number, it hurts to say out loud, but in their 14 wins this season, Nashville went 12 for 36 on the power play, 33.3%. And here's what's interesting. That 33.3% would be the best power play percentage in the league, even above Winnipeg, who started off just on a tear when it comes to special teams. So I think the takeaway is that we are seeing some slow improvement the last 10 games, 7-4-26, 26.92%. So we're seeing improvement on the power play, but it's so important. And I think if Nashville can kind of lean into that, some of these winnable games would convert into wins. So for me, that's it.
It's interesting that you say that. I think it really lines up with what I would say too. And it, for me, I'm going to say depth scoring.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Obviously, the season started off with just a lack of scoring overall, especially from the people you would expect to come in and be hot. But they've had time to figure that out. And I think they have figured it out. 68 goals scored this season between only Philip Forsberg, Jonathan Marchessault, Roman Josi, Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, and Gus Nyquist. All right. Just 6 players, 68 goals. Pretty solid. Between the other 19 players that have played, 35 goals. And I know that a lot of these players are not the guys that are making the big bucks and being paid to score 30 goals a season. I get that. I'm not saying like I need somebody who's playing on the 4th line to be a 30 goal scorer. That's not it. That's not reality. But past Nyquist, the most goals anyone scored is Novak with 5, and then no one else has more than 4. And so when I look at it that way, I think if you look at those 1 goal games, and I think we're going to talk later about some comments I think that Steven Stamkos made, which kind of allude to this, is that there's some games that were 1 goal games. I mean, it was close, and I know close doesn't count in hockey, and that's fine. But the reality is, if you have maybe 1 more goal from each of these 19 guys, how many more games did you win in the first half of the season?
Right.
And that's where I think the difference lies, whether it comes on the power play or whether it comes from the depth scoring. 1 or 2 goals would make a world of difference for this team.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair thing to say.
I would agree with that. You're going to win the games when you score the goals. And like you said, the beginning of the season, that was a challenge for players up and down the lineup. And I think there was maybe some adjustment in the locker room as well, as far as figuring out where the puck was going to go and how, this new looking roster was going to come together. But like you said, now you're seeing these top goal scorers. You're seeing the Forsberg, the Stamkos, the Josis, the Marchessaults. You're seeing them get there. You've got to see the Novaks, the Evangelistas. You want to see, I want to see Fedor Svechkov score some goals.
Absolutely.
You want to see that open up. That's game changing. Again, you go back to the teams that are going to make the postseason are going to be the teams with depth.
Yep.
And, we talked to Mark Borowiecki about different roles. Everybody has different roles. Everybody needs to be contributing offensively to kind of move this team into the position where they thought that they would be. Right.
We look back at the last PBR week as we have here at PBR. There were 2 games. The Preds only played 2 games. Ended up with different results in 2 games that I think they played very well in.
Yes.
So, Washington, if you look back, Washington on Saturday, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
These sometimes a 2-game PBR week is confusing.
Well, that and if I don't go to bed by 7:15,
That's true.
I get
Get a little
get a
confused.
little
So
confused.
ended up losing 4-1, but this was a 1-goal game until nearly midway through the third period. You look at the final result and you go, oh, 4-1, they got blown out. But that's not really what you saw on the ice. There was always that feeling throughout most of that game that they could come back,
Yes.
that they were playing in a way. And again, they were playing against what was a tired Washington Capitals team. And honestly, they looked tired.
Mhm.
It didn't seem like they had the energy that they'd had the night before, which you usually don't say. Like, well, they played last night. They're playing again tonight in a back-to-back. They look good. I thought the Capitals did not look great. And I think it's funny that the score turned out the way it did personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think that Nashville played better hockey. I think we're seeing better hockey, maybe not as consistently as we want to, but I feel like that Washington game, you're seeing Nashville put pieces together, and it's not happening in the time frame that's going to be helpful for this team down the stretch. But you are seeing progress. We talk about the Washington game, Vegas game.
Yeah.
Last night, Preds got out to a 4-0 lead midway through the second period, outshot the Golden Knights 15-1 through the first 25 minutes.
That's crazy.
The fact that Justus Ananen was awake is a testament to his professionalism in net because he really didn't have any work. And people can say, well, Vegas just didn't have a good start. The truth of that game is that Nashville didn't give Vegas a chance to have a good or a bad start.
No.
They just didn't allow Vegas to be in the game in the beginning, in that first half of play.
That's what you want, though.
That's how you want to play these games.
I feel like I've been saying, like when I've been driving on X, formerly known as Twitter, with covering games, is that big key for the team tonight is not letting the other team establish play through the neutral zone, and that's an aggressive forecheck, and you saw them continually shut them down in their own end, and when they managed to get to the neutral zone and even get into their offensive zone, they were shut down. And it was like, well, you saw some of those play enders getting the puck and getting it to the faster defender and getting it out of there. And that happened very consistently. I mean, but like you said, that's what you want to see.
That's how you win games, especially against teams like Vegas, like Washington, who are some of the best teams in the league. You don't let them play their game. And so, I just think it's interesting, people again will say, well, Vegas didn't have a good game. Vegas didn't have a game.
No,
because Nashville didn't allow them to play enough with the puck to have a good or a bad game. And that's exactly what you need to see. Now, the pendulum swung.
Right.
And I think that's interesting. And I think that's maybe a characteristic of what this team has been through. Nashville has not necessarily built a history of coming and from behind and getting those come from behind wins to do that confidently.
Right.
And that's, I think, something that they're really going to need to work on. Only 3 of those 14 wins did they have to come from behind,
right.
And so that's a skill set.
It's a big skill set.
And it's one that the team hasn't really exercised that muscle enough, I think, this season yet.
But I think it's coming, and coming up next when we come back from break, very exciting. We're going to talk about comments from several players on a few different teams regarding the Nashville Predators. Of course, as Preds fans, we know the importance of playing both offense and defense. At Goldstone Financial Group, they apply that same mindset to your retirement. They're not just about growing your assets, but also protecting them. With decades of experience, they can help you build a strategy that secures your financial future. Head to goldstonefinancialgroup.com to learn more and get your game plan in place. welcome back to Penalty Box Radio on 102.5 The Game. Ann is doing the Courtney Cox dance from the Bruce Springsteen video for Dancing in the Dark. Stars and Strikes in Smyrna has everything you need for a fun-filled outing: bowling, laser tag, axe throwing, and their huge new arcade with a full menu and bar. It's also the perfect place to host birthday parties or group events. And if you're a Preds fan, you can catch the game while enjoying great food and drinks. Visit starsandstrikes.com and start planning your next adventure. Now, Ann, we are back.
We are.
We teased that we would be getting into some comments from people, and the reason that I even teased that is because we are going to hear from Steven Stamkos, and then we're also going to hear from Marcus Foligno, which just a little bit of a preview for the next PBR week. But let's start with Steven Stamkos, because I think we just talked about these two games over the past week for us, and by us I mean Penalty Box Radio and our week, which had two games in it.
That's right.
And we talked about the performance of the team after the game. Stamkos made some comments. I'm not saying made some comments like they were bad. I think it was actually really, really telling. I think it kind of gives you a good idea of the mindset of the locker room right now, and kind of where the, what would you say, like where the dial is, where they're, what they're tuned into.
It's a good temperature gauge. I really feel
Right.
like Steven Stamkos kind of gave a glimpse of where is the thermostat set mentally for this team in the locker room, especially after such a challenging start to the season. I thought it was great insight from Steven Stamkos.
Right. So producer Jake, if you will roll that comment for us.
Yeah, I've never questioned the belief. I mean, we'll leave the mathematics up to you guys and all that stuff. All we can do in here is just, there's really no other option than to go out there. At the end of the day, you're a professional athlete, and these are the most competitive people in the world. So we're going out there to try to win games. If whatever happens after that, but we're working hard in practice. The coaching staff is putting together the film packages. We're coming in here early, working on things, and we got to go out and perform. And if we can keep up the way we've gone the last couple of games, I like our chances.
All right, thank you, Steven, for that. Now he said that he'd let us do the math, and I believe you did the math.
I did do some math, looking at where the Predators are, where the Predators could end up. Playoff odds. The Nashville Predators have just a 3.3% chance to make the postseason. So you're saying
there's a chance.
Very, very low odds, especially compared to expectations at the start of the season.
Correct.
Another number that a lot of people kind of want to chew on and talk about, and that is the odds of Nashville receiving the first overall pick in the draft. Those odds currently sit at 4.9% for the first overall pick in the draft. And you may say, look at that. We have better odds to get the first overall pick. But what you have to remember is that the odds still aren't great of getting that first overall pick. Chicago is at 19.2%. San Jose is right behind them. And then, of course, you've got Anaheim, Seattle, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, all have better odds of that first overall pick right now than Nashville. And here is rumblings that I have heard.
Okay.
And people say the Nashville Predators would do the organization good if they just didn't win games from here on out. And here is what I say to that. I do not want to be in the locker room when somebody suggests that the Predators lose for better odds. Like, who draws the shortest straw in hockey and has to tell Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, Philip Forsberg, Roman, any of the players who is the guy that's going to tell them let's not win? There's not a soul that's going to walk out of that locker room after that conversation.
Well, and that's the thing. We have the people who the people out there, the Yossi haters who want Yossi to be more aggressive and angry and emotional on the ice. Well, that if you wanted to see somebody get really mad on this team, go in the locker room and tell them that they need to stop trying to win. And I think that's where you'd see the reaction you want to see, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's going to be a no for me, dog. Like I that's the gig that I wouldn't want. Steven Stamkos talked about it. Look, they are professional athletes. These are people that are so competitive. And as somebody who is not competitive, it's fascinating to me. I think that's part of what is interesting to me about covering sports in general, is because it's such a different mindset than one that I come
Right.
from. You know, I let my kids win sometimes in Scrabble. I don't think that Jonathan Marchessault would ever let his kids win at a board game. And not, you know, that's not a statement on his parenting. It's
No.
a statement on just, they are just inherently competitive to be successful. And to ask this team and these players to be anything less than fully competitive because you think you're going to get this magic pick that 5 years from now is
Right.
going to transform this
Right.
franchise. I think that you're banking on a lot of intangibles, and they're not going to do it.
Oh,
Nor should they.
I agree. No, I don't think that would ever be a thought that would sit well with anybody on that team.
Can you imagine?
And I think too, and this, you know, this is a really good transition here, but you mentioned Marchessault probably not letting his kids win at board games. You know, I know for a fact, because we've heard it, Zach LaRue, when it comes to family, he's very competitive. He's not going to just let somebody win playing a board game because he feels bad or he wants them to have a chance. And we're going to talk about Zach LaRue next. And I think it's interesting here, because, you know, if you think about that concept, you know, losing is not okay.
Mhm.
We're not going to accept losing. We're always going to go back. The coaches will get the video packages together for us to study, for us to get better at. We're going to do the drills on the ice. We're going to work on the things and do the work to make sure that we don't accept losing. Even if losing's happening, it's never acceptable. But the Preds have a game coming up on Saturday against the Minnesota Wild. And I think this is really interesting. I know we debated on whether or not we even talked about this tonight, but I think we've had some time to digest, and we can approach this in a mature not that kind of mature fashion, but in like a responsibly mature fashion. Marcus Foligno made some comments regarding Zach LaRue. We can't read it word for word. Do you want me to read it, Ann? Do you want to read it?
You know what? Let me go ahead and read some of this, and then
Okay.
I'd be interested for you to jump in with your take on this.
Okay.
This is something that Marcus Foligno said, and of course, this is in reference to Zachary LaRue, who was called for and suspended for a slew foot on Jared Spurgeon in the previous game. He said, going to skip that first sentence.
Yeah.
He got suspended, but we lost Spurgeon. It's a dirty play. It should be more games. He shouldn't be able to just walk out of Excel that night because Spurgeon wasn't able to. When you see a guy cheap shotted, that stuff needs to be answered for. The LaRue thing is blatant, trying to hurt a guy. We got into the board so many times with D-men. You just guide them in. It's not the 80s or 90s where you can get away with anything on the forecheck. They've got a lot of guys on Nashville that understand the code, and the young kid doesn't understand. It's frustrating. There will be a price to pay for that game. I'm sure he'll have to answer to someone.
The code talk is what throws me, because what are codes? They're unwritten rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of unwritten rules in a lot of sports, and hockey is definitely one of those. But I think it's interesting that he's being so brazen as to basically say there will be a price to pay for that game, and he shouldn't be able to just walk out of the arena because Spurgeon couldn't walk out of the arena. When you talk about intentionality and things, I believe that you can watch the video of the slew foot and say that was intentional. I also believe you can watch it and say that wasn't intentional. My personal opinion doesn't really matter. I don't think it was intentional, but my personal opinion doesn't matter because I'm not going to be out there. I'm not making up the minds of anybody on either team as to what happened or what's going to happen. But it seems very clear to me that whatever happens on Saturday is not only intentional, but premeditated.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that very surprising that Foligno's been so willing to just make that comment.
It's very Colonel Jessup from A Few Good Men.
Oh,
can I just say that's exactly what this reminded me of? You know, you don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. You know, just sort of that, you know. The other thing that I think is just interesting, and look, I say this very respectfully, but having been an 8th grade girl, I've done enough drama, and this is not a storyline I think we need to lean into because, you know, it's drama. But I think that it's very interesting that he also is calling out the veterans in the locker room
Right.
as if they have not taught him
Right.
the code.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, again, we're not going to change anyone's minds. Hockey fans are passionate. That's one of the
Sure.
best things about hockey fans. I don't think we're going to change anyone's mind depending on what our takes are from that, despite the fact that we've covered Zachary Leroux for several seasons.
Right.
This is a storyline that we're familiar with. We're familiar with the franchise and how it has been working with Zach Leroux. All that
Correct.
aside, I think this doesn't have to be what it is. We can play the tit for tat game. You can talk about, why wasn't Kirill Kaprizov why wasn't he out 4 games when he had an illegal hit on Alexander Carrier back in 2023? I mean,
I don't know.
you can do this and go back and forth. And, here's what I'm going to say. If you're going to drop the gloves, please drop the gloves at the start of the game. And then let's play hockey.
Yeah.
Actual hockey. You don't need to raise anyone.
No.
And this code talk, it's very Colonel Jessup.
I agree, and I think you said it best. It should be an interesting game to watch. I mean, regardless, but all it does is bring up drama. Drama sells tickets, and I think a lot of people will be watching the game. When we come back from break, we're going to hopefully do a special investigative report.
Oh, this is going to be good.
And then we'll have the PBR awards. First, just like the Nashville Predators are committed to winning on the ice, Goldstone Financial Group is committed to helping you win with your retirement planning. From tax strategies to investment advice, they make sure you're prepared for whatever comes next. Don't leave your financial future up to chance. Trust the experts at Goldstone Financial Group. Check them out at goldstonefinancialgroup.com and set yourself up for success. Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio. Beyond the Edge Sports Bar in East Nashville has just been voted the best sports bar in the Scene Nashville's Readers Poll. So if you're looking for the best spot to catch every Preds game, head over to Beyond the Edge. With over 30 TVs and 25 beers on tap, you'll never miss a moment. It's the perfect place to relax with friends, grab some great food, and watch your favorite teams. Visit them at 112 South 11th Street in East Nashville, or check them out online at beyondtheedge.net. Beyond the Edge, where every seat is the best seat in the house. We are back. We've got some very exciting investigative reporting to do tonight. As you may be aware, and I think tweeted, or you put it out on Instagram, right? This picture.
I did.
Okay,
out
so-
on Instagram.
So this is
Out on the gram, as they
these-
say.
these are commemorative records, right?
Yes.
For the Golden Hall with David Poyle, Pecorine, and Shea Weber. They had the induction ceremony, I believe, today, and I believe tomorrow at tomorrow night's game, fans will receive one of these. Now, I was very excited when I saw this because if you pull it out of the sleeve here, it's a record.
Oh yeah.
I brought a record player from home. This was a point of contention that I would drag this all the way here. But here we are.
Here we are.
And I'm really excited because I don't know that anybody's tried to play this yet, but we're gonna see what's on this.
This is going to be amazing.
Very
Do you
excited.
think we should play what's on that record?
I think
don't see
Jake,
why
I don't
not.
see why not.
Well, you know, I value my job, and I don't know if the suit's listening. Shout out Chase McCabe, friend of the show.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if we should play that record.
Why is that? You
Well,
think-
I just think, you know, if fans are going to get theirs tomorrow night at the game, I think that we leave it up for debate.
I'm dying to know. It could be anything.
It could be we were talking before the show,
It could be.
and you
anything.
said it would be really cool if it was like favorite, like all-time calls
Yeah,
from Shea
that would be
Weber
really
and
cool.
Pecorine, and
Renee.
you know, I mean,
the turntable's turning, man. I don't know. Do I drop the needle?
Are we gonna
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
If
That's-
if FCC calls and
yeah.
you know,
Does that come out of Sean's pocket?
it probably
That
comes
fine?
out of mine.
Oh, well, we
Oh.
don't Okay. Well, in all fairness
feels
to our
personal.
producer Jake,
Along with Chase.
we're well. Okay. Well,
Oh,
definitely now we
Now
don't
we're
want to.
not.
We don't want to mess with Chase's
Dang.
financials. So sorry, everybody, to disappoint you. Jake had to rain on everyone's parade. I know everyone is looking forward to hearing what was on that record, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to play it. So what we'll do instead of record time,
Ugh.
we'll do the PBR awards. How's that sound?
I think that sounds great.
That sounds like a great plan.
Yep.
PBR awards, always one of the more exciting parts of the show. And I'll tell you what, will you do me a favor? Normally I go first
You do.
with the Beyond the Edge award, but I think because I need to get this record player out of here, if you could go ahead and start with your award. How's that
I
sound?
absolutely will. Of course,
Okay.
I give out every week the Stars and Strikes Momentum Shift Award. And this award goes to the player who turned the tide of the game with a key play, a hit, a shift in energy, something that swings momentum in the team's favor for the week, for the PBR week. And I have 3 nominees. I'm going to nominate Philip Forsberg. Look, when Philip Forsberg is going, the team is going. He had goals in both of the games. He's on a 3-game scoring streak. So want to nominate Philip Forsberg. I'm also going to nominate Eustace Onanen. He was in net against the Vegas Golden Knights, and we talked to him post game, and he talked about the fact that one of the most challenging things for a goaltender is to play a game where you don't see many shots. And so I want to nominate him because he really was in a tricky situation in the first and part of the second period, and then really was under assault in the third period, came up with some big saves at key times. So Eustace Onanen. My third and final nominee, Spencer Stasny, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
He played the second most minutes in this, or the second most shifts in Vegas, behind only Roman Josi defensively. This is a player who is calm under pressure. He makes solid defensive decisions with the puck. He, and like you mentioned earlier, he and Luke Shen play really, really well together. And this is a player who, when he is on the ice, you watch him. Those are my 3 nominees for the Stars and Strikes Momentum Shift Award. This week, I am awarding it for the first time to Eustace Onanen.
oh,
Juice, or whatever we call him. Can we workshop this?
definitely
please?
not
We-
Juice Deuce. We don't want to do that one. Just that's bizarre. I think big juice,
It gets confusing. And then what do you do?
large
in-game?
juice.
That feels personal.
Okay.
In game, also when he makes the big save, I think we need to workshop. I feel like we can just do juice like
Yeah,
we do for
I think
UC, but
regardless of
it
who's in net,
feels like the crowd is hesitant to commit. So I think
that's fair.
something we got to workshop that.
Okay.
But he does get my award this week.
Well, congratulations to Eustace.
Eustace.
We're not going to travel down the juice road yet.
Not yet.
All right. Well, I of course have the Beyond the Edge award, which goes to the player that gave just a little bit extra. And I'm going to say this: I've always had to say, I want to take the time and try to find the unsung hero of some of these games because, oftentimes it seems it's easy to point and say, well, this guy really made a big impact. This guy made a big difference. But that's why we have the Solid Gold Player of the Week. And so I think for the Beyond the Edge award this week, it's going to be a little bit surprising, but I have 2 nominees.
Okay.
Okay. And this is what I looked at. I wanted to look at a very specific metric on this because, I'm really big on stats. I'm a
We
big
do the math.
stats guy.
That's what we do.
so my
Steven Stamkos says we do the math.
We do the math. The first nominee I have is Spencer Stastny.
Let's go.
And I looked at blocked shots, and he had 5 blocked shots over the last 2 games during this, what we will call PBR week of 2 games. And so if I was looking at blocked shots, I said, well, that's 5. That's got to be the highest on the team. I was wrong.
Interesting.
Roman Josi has 6 block shots, and something else. Roman Josi also has 2 assists, which means he's not just getting it done defensively, but offensively as well. And because of that, the Beyond the Edge award goes to Roman Josi.
Yep.
And I think, again, you're like, well, but you're just giving it to one of the best players on the team. But
Stars.
I think this is a situation where Roman Josi has not been electrifying the world with goals, as of late, like he tends to do. And so when you see that he's still contributing in other ways, I think a lot of people want to say, oh, Josi had a bad game, or he wasn't himself, or I've seen people say that he's slipping. But here's the thing. If you're blocking 6 shots and getting 2 assists,
You're doing your job.
you're doing your job. That's why I think the award goes to him for me. So that brings us to the Golden Goose, the Goldstone Financial Group Solid Gold Player of the Week. This is where both Ann and I make one nomination, and our producer, Jake, who is a parade rainer right now.
A little bit.
What do you mean?
we wanted to play the record.
You can play the record when you get home.
Can
That's
you
your
im-
that's your
can you
record player,
imagine
right?
if-
I brought it all the way here.
Can you imagine if we asked to play the record backwards?
Whoa.
No.
Okay. No, we better not do that.
Well, yeah,
Nope.
We
Nope.
better
I'd
not do
rather
that.
have
We'd
the
rather-
FCC fine.
Okay. So I'll make my nomination. Ann will make hers. We'll make a brief case for our nominees. And Jake actually gets to vote this week. I know he's so excited.
Let's go.
I know there's not a camera on him, but there is much celebration
Yes.
happening. Okay. My nominee for Goldstone Financial Group Solid Gold Player of the Week is going to someone that had 2 goals. Was the face-off win to Forsberg that resulted in what turns out to be a really nice goal for Forsberg and for the Predators. So I'm going to say my nominee is Steven Stamkos with 3 points on the PBR week, 2 of those being goals in one game, and that assist on Forsberg's goal, because that, in my opinion, that goal doesn't happen without Stamkos not just winning the face-off, but getting that puck right to Forsberg's blade.
It's very hard to argue against Steven Stamkos as being an outstanding player this week, but I'm gonna.
Okay, that's fine.
My nominee, Philip Forsberg.
Oh.
This is one of those players that when Philip Forsberg is going, this team is going. He had a goal on the power play. We talked earlier about how important the power play is. And again, you talk about that goal right off the face-off.
Yeah.
You know how else that wouldn't be a goal?
If it didn't go to Forsberg.
If Forsberg hadn't scored.
That's right.
If Forsberg hadn't scored.
You're exactly
So
right.
For me, I just think there is something electric about when Philip Forsberg is on. So for me, he is my nominee for the Solid Gold Player of the Week. Producer Jake, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
There's a lot to
You
think
had
about.
you
I-
had Forsberg and you had Stamkos.
Stamkos. Ann's reasoning, we
is
said
right.
what? Power play goal.
He had a goal on the power play, and also
The
he
goal
had that
off the
quick goal
face-off.
off the face-off,
My-
which Sean tried to sell.
My reasoning, don't listen to Ann. My reasoning for Stamkos is that Forsberg's goal came off of his face-off win. So it was not just a face-off win, but essentially a pass to Forsberg, an assist to Forsberg on that goal, which would not have happened without Steven Stamkos.
My argument is it wouldn't have been a goal without
Well, Jake needs a vote.
it being a goal.
It's time for Jake to
It
vote.
wouldn't be a goal without it being a goal.
Without it being a goal.
That is some very good
Analytic.
analytics, some very good English.
We do the math. We
We
do
do
the math.
the math.
I mean, it does all start with the pass.
But it doesn't end with a pass.
Doesn't happen without one.
Doesn't.
I got to go with Sean this
Oh,
week.
yes.
Unreal.
That's what I like to hear,
Get
Jake.
that record player out right now.
Jake, that check's in the mail. We appreciate it. Okay. Well, it's very exciting. We have Steven Stamkos, the winner of the Goldstone Financial Group Solid Gold Player of the Week. We've had an incredible show tonight. We
Yes.
started off with Mark Borowiecki, one of my all-time favorite players, and just really someone that you could sit and talk to for a long time about hockey. And look, I'll just say this: we've got some exciting games coming up over
We
the
do.
next PBR week. We will be back on the air next week. That show will be hosted by Ann with a special guest in the studio. I will not be in the
I
studio.
will be here.
Jake will be here.
Authority will be.
He's going to keep the
I
record
will
player
keep-
away from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Sean's going to take it home.
I won't be here to take it home, but somebody will. Okay, so thanks for listening to Penalty Box Radio Live on 102.5 The Game, presented by Goldstone Financial Group. If you want smart investing with a company with a proven track record of fiduciary responsibility, look no further than Goldstone Financial Group. Also, thanks to Stars and Strikes of Smyrna and Beyond the Edge, East Nashville. We'll see you again next week.